Welcome to Be a Voice. This is Britt Carpenter on Usula Media. Thanks for joining me today. Today I have a guest on my show that is no stranger to Be a Voice and is no stranger to most of you and no stranger to community. Today I'm sitting here with my really good friend and partner in community, Pichardo. Pichardo. Hi, Roz.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Thanks for doing it this morning. I appreciate it.
That's
It's sort of that type of morning where it's like hard to get out of that waking up funk because it's going to rain today, or it's sort of raining
or it's
now.
raining.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's raining. And does the weather affect your mood?
Yeah, it's got to be bright and sunny for me to be happy sometimes.
Mama Sunshine.
Mama sunshine.
Mama
If I don't
sunshine
have
is
that,
sunshine.
if I don't have that coffee, it's even worse.
Really? So are you a 1 cup a day, or will you have another cup after this?
I'm multiple cups a day.
Are you?
Yeah.
And the caffeine doesn't bother you?
No, after 3 o'clock, I don't drink it anymore because then I won't be able to sleep.
Well, how many is multiple? What's the most amount of
3.
coffee? 3 cups of coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whew. Are you kidding? I'm flying after 1.
No, I live in Kensington. I got to fly all the time.
I crash real hard though. Like I'm like, oh damn, that caffeine.
Listen here, I've got to be on go.
So because you also don't sleep a lot.
5 hours, I'm good.
I was wondering about that because you had posted last night about like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. because I was waking up and I saw that. And I'm like, how many hours does she sleep? 5 hours?
5 hours.
5 hours, you're good.
5 hours, I'm good. Ready
Even
to
if
go.
you're out having a few cocktails, 5 hours.
5 hours. I'm good.
Oh my god.
Then I'm waking up.
Really?
My body's like on a timer. It's like, okay, it's 5 hours is enough.
5 hours is enough.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah. Every now and then a little longer depending on the week, but majority of the time it's 5 hours.
Well, you're busy.
Yes.
You're really, really busy.
Yes, I wear multiple hats.
You do.
I do.
You do. And, most people know you from Operation Save Our City, which you founded 13 years now?
2012.
12. Okay, I was
Yeah.
going to say 11. I don't know why I was going
Yeah,
2010.
2012. Yeah.
12 years, 11 years.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. And Operation Save Our City is what?
So we are a movement that supports families of homicide victims, but also works with folks with a substance use disorder. It evolved from working with families of homicide victims to just so much more. Whatever the community needed, we wanted to be a part of it. So how do we create change? By being part of the solution. So for me it was socks, Narcan, tourniquets, services if someone was murdered, a whole bunch of different stuff that fit the need,
And it's interesting because in 2012 when you started, you really didn't know much about this opioid overdose epidemic crisis that we've been facing because you were really focused on the gun violence aspect and all that. And then all of a sudden, like 2015 and 16, it shifted a little bit because that's when Narcan really came around and we started carrying and understanding it. Yeah. Why that shift though?
So it started heavy in 2018, but 2016 and 17, it was just feeding people. And, I had this pretty big minivan and I would just give out snacks and everything.
Sorry, I'm just remembering the day that the back window of the hoopty truck blew out as you were on the way up to do outreach.
Sounds about right. sounds
Sorry,
about right.
Just had that flashback. Go ahead.
Sounds about right. Well, a lot of the stuff went down in that truck. It's so stuff falling out of it.
Minivan.
Stuff falling out of the car. Anyway, it was definitely a good experience. And then I just evolved, from working with Operation Save Our City to working with Prevention Point, and then from Prevention Point, working with Ceasefire PA, many opportunities of working with many different families at Temple University Emergency Room as a trauma advocate for about 4 years.
You were doing that on Friday and Saturday nights, weren't you?
Yeah.
And you were doing that in the height of COVID.
Yes.
Where you were dedicating your Friday and Saturday nights to going into Temple. I mean, it was a position that you were working, but you were a trauma advocate.
Yeah.
What does a trauma advocate do? And especially why a Friday and Saturday night at Temple Hospital?
So Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays is the busiest time of any shootings, mass shootings, traumas. So it's very busy. I felt like, what's so ironic is my brother was murdered in 2012. And when
His
that
name?
happened, Alexander Martinez.
Say his
yeah.
name.
Yes. And when my brother was murdered, a stranger put him in the back of his pickup truck and took him to the emergency room. And that's where the trauma doctors there attempted to save his life. They did a surgery that lasted about 10 hours. And I just remember at the time in 2012, there were no trauma advocates. So we literally the entire family sat on I want to say it was the 9th floor, something like that, for 10 hours with no update. So we just sat and waited, Every doctor, every nurse that walked by, we were like, is my brother okay? And they wouldn't know what we were talking about because they weren't the ones working on my brother. Mm-hmm. So to be able to fill a role, to be able to give family updates was very, very, full circle for me. So it was great working there.
This stranger that put Alexander in the back of his pickup truck, do you know who that is to this day?
No.
You've never met this person?
Never met him.
Never found out who he was?
Never.
Nothing?
Mm-mm.
Just that he dropped him off?
He took him to the emergency room, almost like police do now, the scoop and run.
Right.
And, he couldn't leave because now the truck was evidence or part of a crime scene. Not a crime scene, but...
Right.
So they held the truck, they did an interview with the gentleman, and then they were allowed to go. But what was so crazy was they were very bold because there was a couple. It was a couple that was in the truck. The truck was tinted. So the shooters didn't know that there were people in that truck to begin with. So they were there when he got shot.
They saw it all go down.
They saw it.
So not just that they assisted, they experienced the trauma.
Yeah.
And then assisted.
Yeah.
And you never found out names.
Mm-mm.
If you had those individuals in front of you right now, what would you say to them?
That I'm proud that they got involved. That they didn't turn a blind eye. They didn't pretend it didn't happen. They could have easily just drove off and said, I don't want to be part of this.
I mean, we're in the middle of a society today where we preach, if you see something,
say something.
Say something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a very small percentage of people today that would. I would say that percentage is probably 30% or less.
Yeah.
I think the majority of people out there are afraid to say something and do something, get involved because, of course, they're afraid of retaliation or what can happen to them. So back in 2012, to have that happen, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. I
Truly
wish I knew
amazing.
who they were.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if and the police could never give you information.
No, because it's still because
It's
the
an
case is still open.
Active investigation.
So they wouldn't give that info.
Well, you know what? It's interesting to know that there are people out there like that who care.
Mm-hmm.
And you turned that into a passion of yours and into a lifelong crusade.
Yeah. I've been helping moms and families for so many years, and now, I shifted to Ceasefire PA to learn a different aspect of policy and legislation and what the government does affects us as far as policy. So I wanted to learn more about it. So that's why I joined Ceasefire PA.
And Ceasefire PA does what?
So we just push bills. We create them. We create events. Like I have an event coming up. It's a vigil at City Hall on the 12th of September, and a chat and chew at Jimmy O'Connor's Rec Center on September 15th at 5:30. So
Nice.
In the midst of all this stuff with police, I still believe that we do still have some good apples in the bunch of the police department. So I'm hoping that with this chat and chew that we can get people to join the force. Obviously, we're short officers, and we're definitely short officers that look like me. We don't have that many black and brown officers policing my community, and that's what I want to see. So Yeah.
When we talk about, the community of Kensington and the neighborhoods over there, in all the divided neighborhoods, I hate to say it like that, but they are. When
Yeah.
you see the bike cops out there pedaling around, and you don't see many black or brown officers on bicycles, and honestly, as you see them sitting in their cars every night on the corners with the lights on, you don't see that either. Why is that, you think?
During the day we see it, but even with that, when something happens, they're so slow to react. I think if you see what's happening in my neighborhood, how do you police Kensington, right? What would that look like? You can't arrest people who are in their full-blown addiction. Like, it's a disease, right? So you're not going to lock someone up who's sick. And then, do you want to lock a dealer up for a bundle? I mean, then can you imagine what the jails would look like? So it's just, what this country needs is more resources. But we also need more police officers that look like me. Because we want young kids to be safe. We also want young kids to trust the police. And in this day and age, with the corruption, the lies, the police brutality, the injustice that's happening between some communities and police, has this divide. Recently, around the corner from me, Eddie Irizarry was shot dead by a police officer, Officer Dale.
And this occurred when?
About 2 weeks ago.
And why? What was the situation that occurred that this officer even drew the gun on Eddie?
So, the different stories that we were getting was that Eddie was driving erratic, right? Okay, let's say he was driving erratic. He had already pulled over. And if some folks may question, he may use his car as a weapon. There was no way that he could ever do that. He was behind a car, and their paddy wagon was on the side. So he couldn't really go anywhere if he even tried to, and not suggesting that he did try. However, the police officers said they saw a knife. Now, I carry a knife.
Look at the gutter in Kensington, you'll see a knife.
Right. Am I going to be shot dead because I have a knife? A pocket knife?
I carry a pocket knife when I'm out in the garden and stuff, doing stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So are we going to be shot dead for carrying it? And not to mention how fast it happened. Within 5-6 seconds of them jumping out of their vehicle, barking commands without waiting for a response, he was shot dead within 5-6 seconds, not realizing or not even trying to de-escalate, which didn't require de-escalating because he was not a threat. He never got out of the car. So, I was with the family yesterday at the funeral, and it was just a hard thing to be at. I think, when you walk up to the casket and you realize that this young man was murdered by someone who was supposed to protect and serve us, it's disheartening. And I think that we got to keep it in the forefront. We got to keep talking about it, because it's something that can be swept under the rugs just as easily as, as so many other cases here in Philly.
How old was Eddie?
I want to say he was 24, 23.
Did he have any other?
I don't know. I've been in contact with his aunt.
Does it matter if you had any other priors or anything like that?
Oh, any priors? Oh, I don't know.
Does
I don't believe so. No, it doesn't matter.
Does that matter?
No, because
does that give the right for anybody to draw?
But I don't think that he did. And if he did, no one would have been able to know that, because they didn't even know who he was. Because within 5 seconds of them meeting him, they took his life.
And I ask that question not as being like, I ask it because, let's face it, what's going to happen now is the officer has been dismissed. He's been terminated from the police force, correct?
Within 30 days, well, he's suspended, and within 30 days with the intent to dismiss.
Dismiss.
However, and even as a citizen, I question that. Like, there was a murder committed. If I would have committed a murder, I would be in jail. Why are they waiting 30 days
Why
for
isn't
him?
it just a dismiss to see what happens? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's an automatic because there was no reason for him. He was
Yeah.
not acting in self-defense. He wasn't in threat or harm. So there's body cameras, stuff like that.
Yeah,
we're
like
gonna
why
find that
do
out.
police get different treatment than citizens?
How long was this officer on the force?
I don't know.
See, these are things that concern me too, because we talk about community policing and we talk about how the place would be much better if it had people that look like you in the community, because that's what
more
your community
trust.
is. More trust. We are
The culture difference, first of all, they
There
would
is-
know some of the cultures. It's different. Latinos, black people, some white folks are not going to know what my culture is, unless you around us.
you could change that to most.
Yeah. Come on,
Come on, let's
So-
face it. Do you know why? Because they've not opened their minds to the awareness. It's
Yeah.
not that whole woke thing. I'm not talking about the woke move. I'm talking
Yeah.
about opening your minds and opening your heart to other people's cultures, understanding the differences between
Yeah.
our colors.
that is one of the things that I, as I continue my role as Philadelphia coordinator at Ceasefire, to be able to fill those gaps, to be able to say, let's continue to do these events, let's continue to support families, not only of homicide victims, but let's teach people how to complete a call to action. It doesn't always have to be lighting a candle, putting teddy bears down, doing a balloon release. It is legit policy. It is signing petitions to get these bills passed so that there's safe storage, so that there's background checks, so that it's all of these things that are going to be protection, odor abuse. Like, all of these things are going to prevent people who shouldn't have guns not to have them. Let's talk about the straw purchasing. Let's talk about all these things. But when we're constantly just around visuals and let's not get, I don't want to diminish the fact that we need these things to heal, but it's so much more after someone's death. Now we have to talk about not so much about how they died, but how they lived and how we can get a policy in honor of that person, because those teddy bears are going to get moldy, they're going to get dirty, and eventually they're going to go in the trash.
And people forget about them.
Yes. But policy, legislation, and bills will be there to stay.
And let's face it, a lot of these policies and legislation, let's just take it to something that's off the topic of it, but Megan's Law. Okay? We all know what that is. We all know it protects the right of children, and it protects, and it requires people that have committed, sexual offenders to be. I think that right there says it all. It's a policy or bill named after somebody that was affected by the system.
Yeah.
And we forget about that voice. We become that voice in the street. You become that voice out there, you become that erratic community who is up in arms and divided. But we forget about the fact that if we see it through to that point where it becomes an actual policy, where that bill is passed.
And not only that, sometimes, with policy too, but sometimes there's action, So we're suing the state of Pennsylvania in the Supreme Court. It's called the Stanley Crawford Law. Stanley Crawford, and we have a hearing September 13th at City Hall where we have sued the state to say that gun violence is a public health epidemic and so much more. And they're responsible for allowing some of the laws that make it easy for people to access guns. This state is accountable too if they don't put any laws in place. So right before our court date, which is in City Hall on the 13th, on the 12th, we're hoping to get about 200 people to surround City Hall, and to whoever's going to hear this case, be there with their images and say, listen, these are all the families that have been affected just in Philadelphia alone, right before the trial, which is before the court date, which is on the 13th.
So you need people September 12th
Yes.
to get out there. And if people are interested in this, they can contact you, of course.
Yes,
They can reach
yes.
out to, listen, Roz's number is everywhere.
Yes.
Or, you know.
You can reach me at operationssaveourcity@gmail.com, at ceasefirep at roz@ceasefirepa.org. So I'm easily accessible.
Good. Because we need that voice.
Yeah.
We need those voices out there. We need people to participate. Everybody wants to be a part of something. Everybody wants to know what they can do. They can show up. I think
Yeah.
people realize that showing up is half the battle.
Yeah.
If you show up, there's strength in numbers. It shows that unity and community. And
Yeah. You know what? And real quick
Yeah.
before I go into that, because we're talking about police officers, but I want to give some credit to this one particular police officer. His name is Walter Smith. Amazing guy. We were in a meeting the other day, and he was the only one that sat among 40 captains in this group to say, I am willing to help support you and support families who was involved in domestic violence. When can we set a date, and when can we get this started? He was the only white shirt in the room that had no problem saying, I will make this happen, and what can I do to help folks who've been affected by domestic violence? I just want to give him his props.
that's awesome. What was the reaction from other people, other white shirts in the room? Because let's face it,
People are on defensive.
they're stuffy.
Yeah, people are on a defensive. But Mr. Smith, Walter Smith, older gentleman, worked with MIC, worked with Operation Save Our City, and now he's going to be working with me with Ceasefire. So he's all about getting stuff done, and he doesn't really care who's looking at him. That's why I appreciate him. He's like community liaison police officer, I believe, but amazing guy.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. We got a lot of issues here in our city, as
Yeah.
do most cities, but for some reason, Philadelphia seems to be a haven for epidemics of societal issues. We have our gun violence, and we see it daily. I mean, where are we at this year with numbers? Do we know? Do we even have numbers? Are they so skewed?
Yeah, I think it's 3. I think it might be 300. So there's a couple things happening. I mean, right now, Jamal Johnson has been doing a 77-day Operation Hug the Block campaign for 77 days. I think he's on his 3rd day.
Where's he from?
He's from Philly, and every day for 77 days, he is choosing a particular block from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. and just hanging out with a group of people wherever the problem is, and just he's going to hug
who
everybody
is he?
he see. He's an activist who's been doing this for some time now. He has joined I Camp Out for several years. We camped out for 3 days, supporting families and doing what we do. So he's on the front line. So he'll be out there for 77 days.
That's excellent.
Look him up. His name is Jamal Johnson.
Jamal Johnson.
And he's just doing the work. I mean, you got other partners who've been, taking turns supporting him, So I think next week he'll be in Kensington, so I'll be supporting him from 10 p.m. till 3 a.m.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Look at these guys out there to talk to him there at 10 p.m. at night, and let them see how the other side lives.
Right.
And that's important to know that there are so many advocates and activists that come into Kensington, of their own volition. They come out there for whatever purpose it is, whatever it may be, but you don't see many of them coming out there after dark.
No.
And I think people have to realize that there's a lot that goes on. And while I understand there's safety and everything like that along the lines, there's also safety in the day, but also people have to realize that it doesn't stop. Like, they don't go to bed at night. They don't have beds to go to. They don't, they try to find their corners. They try to just make sure that their shoes stay on their feet when people go to sleep out there, and things along those lines. And, you also have become a voice, at one point, of course, like I said, for what's going on here with this opioid crisis. You have numbers of overdose reversals in the thousands.
Yeah, as of the day before yesterday is 2,079 overdose reversals.
2079. That is
Yeah.
2,079 overdose reversals.
Yeah.
Has there ever been any that weren't able to be reversed?
Yeah, I've lost about 3 sunshines. Yeah. And it is a testament to what's happening. And I'm not a medical responder. I'm not EMS. I'm not a nurse. I'm a resident. And so for that to happen, the city should be ashamed of themselves. I think, city officials shouldn't be out here gloating about giving out book bags when you got people dying of ODs. And I think, is a testament to the skill that we learn when living in Kensington. I'm going to be in D.C. with SAMHSA. I am the only person who's ever trained folks on how to administer Narcan in a wheelchair. I mean, there's a skill to that, there's a technique to that, and it looks different, especially with xylazine and amputees and colostomy bags and neck injuries, back injuries. So I'm honored to be able to teach folks at SAMHSA, which is a government agency, and their top doctor who was appointed by Biden, and train them because, I live in Kensington. I'm here and I've done a lot of them. So, so it's definitely a great honor to be able to train folks.
Did you ever think back to like 2016 as you and I stood on the hill on Gurney Street overlooking the tracks, knowing that there was about to be an eviction coming over the next year and a half, that you would have had the impact that you've had as an individual on your community?
I never thought that I would see the things that I've seen. Just stepping out of my comfort zone and being bold about not caring what people thought about our work. Being bold about saying that we love harm reduction and not caring what people think. I think I've grown as a person, because sometimes I've used harmful words in the beginning, not knowing until now. I know that our words mean so much to people who are struggling with life.
Did you ever think that you would be the voice that you are today and for those who aren't around? And how did it happen?
Did I think I was going to... I knew I was going to be the voice of my brother and of my sister. That was a given, and of my boyfriend, and even of the shooter who took my boyfriend's life and almost took my life. I needed to be...
Your boyfriend's name?
My boyfriend's name is Talbert Jackson.
Your
My
sister's?
sister's name is Kathleen Pichardo. The shooter's name is Donald Williams. And I will be his voice too. I think when people talk about shooters, they don't talk about it they talk about it in the light of anger and resentment. But I talk about it in a sense of lack of resources for him and lack of mental health care for him. He was a victim of gun violence, and I felt like if that was addressed, he wouldn't have became a shooter. But because he never got the help he needed, and the trauma continued, and the paranoia continued, and things like that continued, he became a shooter. So I can briefly be his voice, but just like I can be my boyfriend's voice, he took his life unnecessarily, but the trauma was unaddressed too. I can be the voice of my sister who suffered from substance use disorder and mental health, and how she was seeking help and just couldn't find it. She lost her way and ultimately took her life. But I feel like, we just gotta keep people's memory alive and sometimes not focus so much about how they died, but how they lived. And I think it's so important to share that my sister was light. She was complete light, just like my brother was light,
Just like you are.
Thank you. So my family, I miss them, but I think that, they lived this life of joy at one point until my brother's life was taken from him by someone so dark, and my sister just couldn't fight the demons of suicide. And I think sometimes we talk about it, but we need to talk about how they lived most of all.
You are not just an advocate, an activist, and a voice. You are a resident of Kensington. Mm-hmm. You've been for quite some time.
Very long time.
Very long time. Most residents of Kensington don't do what you do. Most residents of Kensington maybe oppose a little bit what we do out there on the streets. Mm-hmm. How does being a resident, how does that affect you? I mean, all right, let's face it, Kensington, kids aren't playing in the streets, Roz. Kids don't walk around barefoot. The only people barefoot out there are the sunshines that don't have shoes or got them stolen the night before. You can't walk down the avenue with your family to go to the corner store without grabbing your son or daughter's hand and pulling them away from whatever you're pulling them away from. I'm not quite sure what they think is going to happen, but they do. What do you think about that? How does that affect you in that aspect?
I mean, it does. I mean, it affects me too. I mean, don't get it wrong. We are about harm reduction, but sometimes it affects me too. I think we do this work because we love to do this work, but we don't want it to affect our quality of life either. As a harm reductionist, I see the necessity of clean works, of supplies, and making sure people don't get HIV and hepatitis. But I also hold people accountable for the stuff that they distribute. I feel like every organization who's distributing syringes and tourniquets and cookers, all of us, because I'm included in this too. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't hand out those supplies either. We have an obligation and a responsibility to the community. Some people don't live here. Some people get to go home where they don't see it, but I live here. Mm-hmm. So it is their responsibility to have more people cleaning up. It's their stuff they're giving out in the name of harm reduction, but then it's got to be in the name of love for the residents that you pick it up, period.
And that's why even in Fill the Unknown, we've always had that. And you and I, when we used to post up on corners with water, we gave to everybody. Mm-hmm. We didn't care who you were, what you were doing. Yeah. And how about the residents sometimes will come by and say, oh, no, we don't need it. And our response is, yes, you do.
Yeah, everyone needs water.
Everybody's in need.
Everybody gets thirsty.
Everybody wants to do good, mm-hmm. but if you don't do well, you'll never do good.
Yeah.
And a lot of...
And doing good looks different for everybody.
Absolutely. And a lot of the advocate groups out there, they come out and they forget about the residents.
Yeah.
They forget that there's people behind closed doors.
Oh, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to come up to us who've been doing it for years and say, hey, how do you hand this out without wrecking the community? First of all, you bring your trash bag or your trash can with you. So if you're handing out food or you're handing out clothes or you're handing out whatever, that because you're distributing it, make sure you got a trash can for the wrappers of the sandwiches you just gave out, and make sure that you clean up after the mess, because you're giving this stuff out. I just feel like there's a way to show love with empathy, compassion, and not exploiting. And I feel like some folks who come to my community to really exploit most of the time, you don't need a camera to say you're doing good things. That's one. You don't need to take pictures of someone without consent to say you're doing something good. You don't need to show someone's face who don't want to be found, first of all, or don't want to be shown. And it's legal. They can do it.
Absolutely.
But is it ethical? Is it morally right? No one wants to be captured in their worst moment of their life.
If somebody is posting, and I think we learned this as well years ago, because we may have thought that it was our way of making a point, or establishing. Today, people are doing it as trauma porn.
Oh yeah,
they're doing it as exploitation.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for that reason, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Then you need to check yourself and get the hell out of the community.
Yeah. You know what I always did, Britt? In the beginning when I was doing this work, I remember having my minivan and having my live feed. I don't know if you remember that. And I remember having my live feed, but I always had a sign. If you go past this point, you're going to be in my video. So just know that. And I'm by myself. So this is my security. So if something goes down, somebody going to see you, right? So the Sunshine's new. Mm-hmm. But also they respected me. Mm-hmm. They lined up real nice. They're going to get their snacks. They're going to get their Slim Jims. They're going to get whatever it is they need. But if you pass this point, if you want to be on camera, go ahead, say hi to whoever. But if you don't want to be on camera, then you stay right here and you're going to get your snacks and you're going to be just fine. Occasionally, I would find my image online that I didn't post of me reversing an overdose. There's this one gentleman that I see to this day. He had just gotten out of prison. He still had his prison gear on. And he was in front of the storefront and he had OD'd. And I just remember giving him like 4 Narcans. And to this day, I see this image online of me reversing this guy and a video of me reversing this guy. And I'm just so disappointed at the person who took this image because, one, I didn't realize that the people behind me were like kind of one had a bat, and I didn't realize the danger that I potentially would have been in. But I'm like, you're saying that every time someone reverses an overdose that it can be dangerous, and he could have just been holding it. He probably was trying to sell the bat, but what I see is what everybody else sees. Oh, she's about to get hit in the head with a bat. That wasn't the case. But when you look at it, it's going to deter someone from wanting to give someone Narcan because of this stupid picture that you took. And that's the frustrating part for me. And I didn't necessarily want my image out like that, you know?
It's not why we do it.
We don't want to see somebody blue, unresponsive. I mean, this dude was knocking on death's door. And not everybody wants to be found. And you never know if someone's going to go into recovery and someone's going to get a good job. And then 2 years later, their employer sees this picture and says, this is you? Mm-hmm. We're going to have to let you go because we can't have you represent our company with this. And some people think like that. May not be legal, but they do think like that.
Absolutely they do.
You know,
it's an image. You got to.
It's an image.
You protect that
like,
image.
You
don't
know,
want
ceasefire. I can't be walking around doing certain things with ceasefire or even with an operation. Say, we have a reputation to keep. We have. You know, we have to represent whatever company that we're with to the fullest. You know, so we got to be careful what we do, and sometimes, you know, people do foolish things by taking pictures of people who don't want to be photographed.
There's a lot of that out there. We see it. You know, we've seen people out there who profess
in the name
they're
of
helping,
awareness.
and they've done it once.
In the name of awareness, or in the name of Jesus. With the church folks come and be like, I'm going to pray over this person. They never asked for your prayer. They didn't ask for you to be on live either.
No, you don't need to be doing that. And the funny thing is, too, like, if people want to watch that, I invite them to come out and help us. Don't sit on your YouTube and be YouTube people where you're watching all these videos and making comments. Come out here and experience it firsthand.
Trolls on the internet.
Oh my gosh, and we get a lot of them. It becomes really exhausting sometimes.
Yeah, we have this one thing on Facebook, Lost in Kensington or something like that. And they always say, oh, we're doing it in the name of awareness. We're doing it so family can know that their loved one's alive. No, that's not how you do it. That's not respectful. No one wants to see their mom on the avenue. No one wants to see their mom completely bent over in a position that's not, in a way, you know what I'm saying? So no one wants to see their dad who has wounds. No one wants to see their dad that once had arms, now he lost them both, and they didn't know.
You're seeing people at their weakest, at their most vulnerable.
Yeah, nobody wants to see, if most of the time, a Sunshine would know how to go back home. Most of the time. They know how to reach a loved one and say, I'm good. So I feel like folks are just exploiting, after the death of my cousin Lou, people would exploit their daughters to get a story. People would ask a teenager questions, not knowing that the language that she may speak may be harmful. That's someone young. I love my little cousin, but sometimes some of the language she don't know. And if you're interviewing her about her cousin, about her dad, and you've exploited him over the years, that's a problem.
It is.
And if you're not going to teach her anything, then why have her look like she's insensitive because the interviewer didn't teach her the right language on how to refer human beings? You don't call them addicts. You don't call them junkies. You don't call them zombies. You don't call them crackheads. You don't call them names that are going to diminish someone's, like who they are as a person, as a human.
It's
derogatory. Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that? So I feel like it's a responsibility of folks who are doing media and presenting this content that's harmful to clean up their act and be a part of the solution and not part of the problem.
It hurts me every time I hear the word junkie because that's what I was called because I'm a recovering heroin addict. So I'm one of those persons when they open their mouths, that's who they're talking about. But we do some really good stuff together as a community, as individuals. This coming week, Tuesday, August 29th at 6 p.m. We're going to be once again hosting the Walk in Remembrance. What's that about, Roz?
So we are doing the Overdose Memorial Walk, and we do it every year. And we're going to start at Kensington and Huntington at 6 o'clock, and we're going to walk to McPherson in hopes that we get a pretty good crowd, have the images of our loved one, and just memorialize their life, and again, bring awareness, but also bring out resources and just connect with people who are part of the harm reduction community who we haven't seen in a while, and just reconnect people and just keep each other grounded, because this work, we got to be able to support one another. And this is one of the events that we're able to reconnect with folks and also, say the names out loud of folks that we've lost. It's been a while since I'd said my cousin Lou's name. So, it feels good to be able to remember folks for their beautiful smiles. And again, not necessarily how they died, but definitely how they lived and how they, impacted our life. So.
And that's going to be on Tuesday night, August 29th.
Yes.
International Overdose Awareness Day is August 31st. We are going to be walking on Tuesday night for a walk in remembrance. If somebody out there wants their loved one's name read, they can contact Roz or myself, and we'll add it to the list. We welcome families, we welcome loved ones, we welcome people who may not have a connection to it to show up and be part of the solution, because that's the way you become part of a solution, by connecting and learning.
Yeah, we also need huggers. Listen, we need people who can hug us at the end of this walk. So if you one of those folks who wear your I Give Free Hugs shirts, come on down and embrace us, as this is going to be a heavy night, but also we appreciate all the love and hugs that we can get at the end of this walk.
I'm excited for this week, this walk.
Me too.
I always am every year. It's,
Yeah.
We've come a long way.
Yeah. A lot of work.
A lot of work.
A lot of tears, a lot of sweat, a lot of blood.
Literally. A lot of wanting to wring someone's neck, and it's usually each other sometimes.
You got enough snacks? What?
And then, of course,
no gun locks? What you talking about? Wait, they didn't pass this bill on gun violence? Are you kidding me?
You're going to put that gun lock on your bike? Give it back.
I'm going to take the gun lock and the bike.
And the bike.
It's for a firearm,
Merry
not for
Christmas.
your bike.
So, we do a lot of crazy stuff out there. It's really important that we try to keep our sanity and we try to laugh at all times.
Occasionally dark humor, but that's what harm reduction is.
I think it's a lot of dark humor.
Yeah.
Some people don't get it either.
They don't.
We do.
We do. That's how we heal.
Well, how else do you heal? What else do you do for yourself to heal?
Every day I practice self-care. I mean, if you can imagine, my losses are pretty immense, so I practice self-care every single day. I do something every day that's going to, whether that's reflecting, meditating, drinking a cup of coffee, sitting on the edge of my bed, just reflecting really.
Drinking a martini.
That's too early for the martinis, but that might be a little. We might have a problem then, which is fine. I'm a harm reductionist, so I know where to go. What are my dark humors? However, I feel like as an activist and advocate, and wearing many different hats, I feel like we have to be connected to people, but we also have to be an example. And we have to practice self-care, because we cannot take care of anyone else if we're not right ourselves. And I think we mentally have to be prepared for something that's coming next. And for me, is typically someone who just lost a loved one to murder, or someone who just OD'd. And they're all surrounded by trauma. So what that looks like for me is a lot of healing, a lot of talking, a lot of meditating, a lot of drumming, a lot of that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
And, it doesn't get easier, but we learn to understand it a lot more, and we learn how to manage it a lot better.
Yeah.
And that does make it easier then for those that we work with. So
surrounding ourselves with people who do the work. Yesterday I was able to meet with one of the trauma doctors, Dr. Jessica Beard, and we never even saw each other's faces until yesterday, because we were always geared up. So it's always good to connect a face to the voice and to the spaces, especially when we were around trauma together. We were about that hustle and bustle of saving a life, and then at the end, 4 years later or 3 years later, I finally get to see. I recognized her eyes and I recognized her voice, and then to finally see the entire face and to have that conversation and to hold her hand and give her a hug and say, "Man, thank you. I'm not at Temple anymore. However, I appreciate her hard work, and she's a force to be reckoned with in those operating rooms in that trauma base." So definitely want to give her, and she's so humbled. She's so calm spirit kind of person. So yeah.
One of the major things I like what we do is the connections we made along the way. If it weren't for the connections we made along the way, we probably wouldn't be who we are today.
Absolutely.
But Roz, we've come a long way. I've known you for years, and I thank you for all you do for the community. I thank you for all you do for me, all you do for everybody else. I thank you for what you do for yourself, because it's important to have that self-care and keep you around. And I always love having you on my show, because it's such a great connection.
Thank you.
And we didn't talk about flatulence once. You're good.
That humor.
That dark humor. But,
Harm Reductionist.
make sure you're following Operation Save Our City on Instagram and on Facebook. Check out Roz, what she's doing. She does a lot of great things out here in our community. She has a lot of events coming up. She's always posting about them. Check us out on Tuesday night, August 29th at the Overdose Awareness March. Check out Ceasefire PA with Roz and what she's doing for them. And remember, have a little compassion along the way. And if you don't know about something, learn about it. Awareness is the best cure for a disease of ignorance. That's what I got to say.
Yes, yes.
So thanks, Roz.
Thank you for having me.
I love you.
Love you too.
You're awesome, my snack pack.
Thank you, snack
And the
pack.
rest of you out there, remember, whatever it is you stand for, be a voice. This is Britt Carpenter on Usula Media. Have a great rest of your day.